that was very important to her. And because of the Portland Foundation, they were able to give a scholarship to George McGill that lived down under the bridge to go to college, to be an artist. And this was done by this volunteer group that was very concerned of the area. This was a thriving area. There were homeowners, renters, but it was one big community that everyone looked out for everyone. There was no problem, and not just African Americans lived there. On Airline Avenue, there was a brownstone apartment building where there were white people that lived there. The Estabrooks lived there, the Mackenzies. I have a resident that lives in my building. Her aunt and uncle lived there because they were Irish and they came to Portland to work in the quarry. So it was a mixed community. They were homeowners, business owners. This was a thriving community that was taken away.
She done said everything, so I don't have nothing to say. I'm saying, when's she gonna pass over to me? But no, she's our baby sister. My older sister is out in the audience. She did a very good job. One thing that she left out was that our mother was part of that Portland Foundation that also started Quarry Heights. Quarry Heights is down on Main Street here, was the first low-income housing project and the only one in Portland. And she ran that. Also, my mother was, we didn't know it as children, maybe my older sister Jerry, but she was soft-spoken. People listened to her when she talked, and both black and white, or whatever they were in growing up in Portland. And my baby sister and I, we grew up like most white people here in Portland. We never called it the bottom, or it was under the bridge. Amen. When we talked about down underneath the bridge, we talked about Smitty's and places like that. But my mother made sure that we went to church down there. And when you see going to church, we're going down underneath the bridge, and I had two brothers, younger brothers, and we were happy. We were happy to get down underneath the bridge to our community, to see our folks, and we learned a lot. But she was, I can honestly say that she was well respected in this town by both black and white, whatever color you was, and I think she got a lot of that from our grandparents, Nelson Smith and Maddie Smith. Nelson, a lot of you probably heard Nelson worked for St. Mary's School. He was the custodian of St. Mary's School. He also dug the graves down at the cemetery, St. Mary's Cemetery on Marlborough Street. He would dig them by hand. And then his nephew, his brother's son, John, used to dig the graves up at Gildersley, up there. So our family goes way back, and we all got a history of what it should have looked like, or no, let me rephrase that. What it looks like now. We get along better. But when my mother was at CAGM, before that, and growing up here as a kid, going to the schools here, Portland was a very prejudiced town, to be honest with you.
Yes.
It was very, very, very prejudiced town. But at that time, you're right. But because of her, her children were able to cope with it.
Can I say something to that? My recollection when I was growing up here in Portland, and David had already alluded to that, when black families came to Portland, there were, I think, one or two locations that we could only live in, all right? We were redlined, all right? We were directed to the worst part of town, okay? Under the bridge, if we could do some time travel and go back there, right now you would have said, how could people live there? We lived in squalor, and I think they have some pictures of some of the buildings. But the thing about it for me was coming up here on the main street and looking around and seeing how the residents of Portland were living, the white residents. And I would say to myself, why do I have to live like this? Why am I relegated to this area? And that was because the resources that the people under the bridge had were very limited. If we did get employment, it was the worst part of the fact, and I think Continental Can was one of the biggest employers for the city at that time. I remember when we lived here, there used to be on the river, it used to be a cannery. And the minorities worked at the cannery, scaling fish. I ate more fish growing up than what I do now, because we were paid a mere pittance, and our pay was taking home fish. So that was a supply that we could depend on. And then certain areas we did farming and whatnot. But the living there, it gave me joy, even though it wasn't the best of places to live, all right? As David said, and all the panelists have said, it was a homogeneous society. Everybody there took part. It was nothing to go next door and say, hey, I need a couple of eggs, I need some sugar, I need some milk. We shared in that community. Even though we were lacking, but collectively, together, we were able to take care of the need of that community, because we were not allowed to share in with the fruits of what the town provided, because it was not provided to us. So when Pratt Whitney came in, Wilcox Critton, a lot of the minorities that were in the bottom moved out because they had a better opportunity, because Portland it was a closed community when it came to the minority residents. Do I have any hatred? No, because that's just the way it is. I know better, okay? I didn't experience a lot of racism until I got to Middletown, okay? When I was on the fields of playing ball, because the minority students were bused to the better schools, which at that time was Woodrow Wilson High School. The Middletown High School was considered the ghetto school. So if you were a good athlete, which I was at the time, I went to Woodrow Wilson High School. At Woodrow Wilson High School, I didn't know my middle name started with an N, because that's all I was referred to. And as a result of that, I took my aggressions out on the playing field, which motivated me to be as good as I was. Because I couldn't go downtown fighting somebody because who called me that name, because I go to jail. So I took it out on the field. And I grew up with that aggression because it was the only outlet that I had to blow off steam. When we lived in Laurel, there was a field right in the center of where we all lived. That was a gathering field for all of the youth to play all kind of different balls. That was our after-school program because we were not allowed to participate in the after-school programs that Portland had. So we were very creative in a lot of things. Very creative because we were not allowed to participate fully as residents of Portland. Someone has a question? Yes. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, you're doing good.
I don't mean to monopolize. I don't mean to monopolize, but I'm just trying to give you a clear view what we grew up with, okay? Limited resources. But you know what? Here's the thing. I didn't know that I was poor. I didn't know that. I was happy. Only thing I had a problem with, when Christmas time came, I always got summer toys in the winter. How do you use summer toys in the winter? Snow on the ground. I always got a bike. When I got a bike, it was always in the wintertime. But the community was that we loved one another. We looked out for one another. You know, it was always try to help one another. It was a home, and everybody knew everybody. I could go into anybody's home, and I was accepted. You know, the doors are always open. You know, I think we had a couple street lights down there. We would all gather around the street lights, and then when the lights went off, we went home. Your mother didn't have to call you because she knew where you were, right in the center of that field. Okay. We could look out the window, or people who lived on Airline Avenue could come over and see where we were. But those are some of the greatest times. I think that gave us our foundation to where we are today, because that generation grew up with respect. This generation, they're gone. You know, some of the things that we did, I try to tell our kids, and they look at, that's corny. No, that was fun. You know, we didn't sit in the house playing video games. We got up in the morning after school on Saturday, we had to do our chores before we could go outside. And then when you went outside, you stayed outside. It wasn't just running in and out of the house. Oh no, my grandma would say, if you come in, you stay in. If you go out, you stay out. That was our part of our culture. When Portland had their celebration, Under the Bridge had a celebration too, and I wish some of y'all could have experienced that celebration. My grandmother, who was the matriarch, everybody knew Nancy Walker, am I right? Everybody knew Mother Nancy Walker, okay? That was my grandmother. She would organize, okay, festivities for the community during certain holidays. We would have cookouts, we'd have barbecues. I mean, and the community, she would head it, and everybody would participate. For me, she used to have an ice cream tray that used to do by hand. And boy, let me tell you, that was my job. Why? Because when I got finished churning that ice cream, she would give me the paddle, and I would sit there and just eat that paddle. Those are some of the fondest. We played kickball, there'd be barbecuing, and I mean, it's just, of course, you got your other guys, you know, had that other element, but they did it respectfully. They did it respectfully. And you know, Smitty's, we used to hang out at Smitty's, and what was that other little grocery store over there that we just go by, Penny King? Does anybody remember that? Yes. Yes, we used to go there and get that penny candy before we'd go to school. And during the wintertime, there was a hill underneath the bridge. That would be where we go sliding. You remember that? And you know, I guess we weren't fortunate to have sleds, so what we would do, we'd get cardboard boxes, because we'd go over Continental Can and get them cardboard boxes and take it over to the hill and slide down the hill. And then when it got wet, we throw it away and go get another box. But life was fun, you know, even though it was hard, but it was fun. And I don't want to monopolize, because let me tell you, it was just a great experience.
Anything to add, Patty?
I could add, but you got a question? I'm going to ask some questions from the audience.
Okay. Here's the next question that comes up is, who founded the True Vine Church and what year was it? And what can you tell us about the church?
That was before my time.
Well,
But-
I have the information.
But I did participate in activities at the church. I remember your oldest sister, the Davidson family. They came all the way from Cromwell. And sometimes I get so emotional. And they made sure all the kids in the neighborhood were in attendance. I'll never forget our first choir robes. They're blue and red. And that's where the community park comes in. We never needed anything. I don't remember my parents paying for those. I don't remember anything except showing up, being loved, and knowing how to give it back when it was my turn. And I believe, if you want to elaborate some more, Barbara, who started True Vine?
As Patricia said, True Vine Holiness Church was in the center of Under the Bridge. And also, where Laurence was talking about that circle, there was a big tree. Sundays after church, the members would go out, my sister can attest to it, and the kids would run around, they would eat around that tree. Now, True Vine Holiness Church, the original church that was there, was built in 1935. The church was formed in 1923. The church that it was, the land that it was built on, because Maybelle Davison, who grew up in Jacksonville, Florida, moved to up here, and she worked for Tracy Hubbard of Rogers and Hubbard's Bone Mill. And that is one reason why Laurence was saying no one wanted to live there, because of the bone mill, because it stunk. No one would want to live there. But that's where the African community was. Just put them down there and be forgotten. Before the church was built, they were given permission to use, first they were up in the, they called it the Top Diggins, which now is Middlesex Avenue, that's up here by the Portland Fire Department in the field. They held church there in a shack. Then they were given permission by Wesleyan to use a building that was eventually moved to Cross Street, which was the original Cross Street Amy Zion Church, which now is on West Street. In 1919, Maybelle Davison married Major Taylor and moved to Portland. And along with Reverend J.J. Banks, then of Portland, Mr. and Mrs. William Bell Mifflin of the offices of Rogers and Hubbard, and they were given land that was east of the sewer on the river edge. And there too, they were given a vacant shed on the Hubbard property. And then the first church was built in 1935 by church members and donations from the community. And then, of course, when they dispersed the community, they told the church that they would have to go also. And so the church moved to where it is now at 398 Main Street. which was a battle because the residents in the area took the church to court to say that we could not relocate there. Of course, they lost. And that, to this day, that's where True Vine Holiness Church is located, at 398 Main Street.
Amen, thank you. Our next question here is for Mr. Roane. I grew up close to Long River Village, Laurel Street. Can you share some of your memories growing up there and your feelings when it was raised under?
Yeah, we were only there, our family was only there a short period of time. We weren't there but less than 2 years, wasn't it, Jerry?
I can't hear you.
2 years?
How long were you on Laurel Street?
On High Street?
No.
Laurel Street.
Laurel Street?
Jerry, right. Well, we were there 2 years, and,
But most of the time we're on High Street.
yeah. What I
Majority of the time we're on High Street.
what I remember about that is.
I was born in 1933. That's when we were living on Laurel Street.
Yeah.
2 years later, we moved to High Street. The growers owned that. And they had a tavern and a store where the Anderson farmhouse is, farm market is. And he owned 4 houses there. And his mother lived next door to us, Mrs. Anderson. And I don't know how my grandmother got that rent, but Mr. Anderson, Mr. Grower rented our house, and that's why we weren't living under the bridge. And I also want to add one thing my mother did, and I know I'm bragging, but she also had a work program. She got the first black workers in Pratt Whitney.
Amen.
What I remember about that particular area was that during those days, there was Long River Village, and then there was Veterans Terrace.
Right.
Veterans Terrace was regular Army barracks.
Yeah.
The walls are real thin, so if you said hello loud, everybody heard you. And it was just the one street. Veterans Terrace. That was her telling me she's listening. That was her telling me I'm talking too much. But real quickly, we only spent a short time, and I even tell people now when we're talking about Middletown, Veterans Terrace and Long River Village were really, even though they were street by street, they were really 2 separate places. I recall when we did